That night at dinner, my wife looked me in the eyes and said, "Our son needs a real father, not you." Then my own boy repeated it, like a knife to my chest. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just packed a bag, left a single note, and disappeared to Europe. And the moment I was gone, everything they thought would be easier started falling apart. If you want the full story and the twist that changed everything, hit subscribe and stay with me. The front door clicked shut behind me, and the house felt familiar in that way it always did after a work trip. Quiet, organized, almost too still. My suitcase rolled over the entryway tile, and I set it by the coat closet without thinking. A few hours earlier, I'd been in a conference room in Washington, D.C., shaking hands, nodding at the right moments, making sure every decision had a paper trail. That part of my life made sense. Rules, structure, accountability. Home was supposed to be the soft place. I loosened my tie as I walked toward the kitchen. My son's backpack sat on the floor like it had been dropped in a hurry. Vanessa's voice drifted from the living room, sharp and clean, the kind of tone that didn't sound like anger, but carried the same weight. "He's been doing fine without you hovering," she said. My son laughed at something on the TV. I heard his laugh and felt that little tug in my chest that had nothing to do with pride and everything to do with relief. I hadn't missed it. I hadn't missed him. Vanessa didn't look up when I stepped into the room. She stayed on her phone, scrolling, one leg crossed over the other like she had all the time in the world. "Hey," I said. "You're back," she replied, like she was confirming a delivery arrived. I leaned down and kissed my son on the head. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean into it either. He kept his eyes on the screen and gave me a quick smile that felt practiced. "How was school?" I asked. "Fine," he said. Then, after a beat, he added, "Mom says you don't need to ask me a million questions." Vanessa didn't even pretend she hadn't heard that. I stood there for a second with my hand still resting on my son's shoulder, and I swallowed what wanted to come out of my mouth. I told myself it was just a kid being a kid. I told myself not to be sensitive. I told myself to let it go. That had become my specialty. Dinner wasn't anything special. Chicken, rice, a salad Vanessa barely touched. We sat at the table like a family does, like we were still performing the same routine we'd been performing for years. I tried to talk about my trip. I mentioned traffic on I-85, a meeting that ran long, a coworker who got promoted, normal things, safe things. Vanessa listened the way a teacher listens to a student who's trying too hard. "You know," she said, cutting her chicken with slow, deliberate strokes, "I've been thinking." I kept chewing. I waited. "Our son needs a real father." The words landed so cleanly that for a second, I didn't even understand what I'd heard. I looked up. Vanessa wasn't smiling. She wasn't dramatic. No tears. No shaking hands. Just calm, like she was stating something obvious. "Excuse me?" I said. She didn't flinch. "A real father," she repeated. "Not whatever you think you are." My son's fork stopped midair. He glanced at her, then at me. There was a flicker in his eyes, confusion, maybe guilt, before it got covered up by something else, something he'd learned. "Mom's right," he said quietly, then louder, like he wanted it to sound true. "You're not really here. You're just around." I felt my jaw tighten. The back of my neck went hot, not because I was about to explode, because I wasn't. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. "And if you don't like hearing it," she said, "then divorce me." No raised voice, no sarcasm, just that sentence, delivered like a door closing. I stared at my plate. My hands stayed flat on the table. No shaking, no pounding, no show. It hit me that my silence, the same silence I'd used to keep peace, had turned into permission. Permission for her to speak to me any way she wanted. Permission for my son to follow her lead. Permission for my own place in this house to shrink until it was barely visible. I looked at my boy. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He kept pushing rice around his plate, like he could hide inside that small movement. Vanessa watched me, like she was waiting for me to finally perform, to beg, to argue, to prove her point. Instead, I stood up, carried my plate to the sink, and rinsed it off. Water ran over ceramic. The sound filled the room in a way my voice didn't. "I'm going to step outside," I said. Nobody answered. The porch air felt cool against my face. I stood there with my arms folded, listening through the door. I could hear the TV again. I could hear Vanessa's soft laugh, the one she used when I shut the laptop, went upstairs, and lay on my side of the bed with my eyes open until morning. She slept facing the wall. At some point, she shifted and sighed, like I was the one keeping her up, even in silence. Before sunrise, I showered, dressed, and packed a small carry-on. Not the suitcase from last night, a clean one, a deliberate one. In the kitchen, I poured coffee and watched the clock above the stove. When my son came downstairs, his hair still messy, he stopped when he saw the bag by the door. "You leaving again?" he asked. "For work," I said. He nodded like that explained everything, like it always had. Vanessa walked in a minute later, robe tied tight, phone already in her hand. She looked at the bag and then at me. "So you're serious," she said. "I'm going to DC today," I replied. "Of course you are." No anger, no surprise, just that familiar tone, like she was documenting my flaws. I didn't argue. I grabbed my keys, touched my son's shoulder once, and walked out. The drive to the airport felt like a tunnel I'd been in for years, without realizing it. Atlanta traffic, radio chatter, people cutting each other off like everyone was late for something important. I made my flight. I landed at Reagan National mid-morning and went straight to the office. By noon, I sat in a conference room with HR and my director. The air smelled like dry carpet and printer ink. A folder sat in front of me with my name on it. They spoke in that careful corporate language. Opportunity, strategic assignment, increased responsibility. I nodded at the right times, asked the right questions, and signed where the sticky notes marked the signature lines. No one in that room could see the dinner table in Atlanta. They saw a stable man making a stable decision. Afterward, I stood by the elevator, staring at the numbers as they lit up and disappeared. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Tell your son you'll be gone again. He deserves honesty." I stared at the screen for a second, then replied with one line. "I'll call him tonight." No response. By late afternoon, I sat in my car in the parking garage, engine off, suit jacket tossed on the passenger seat. I called my son. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, buddy," I said. "Hey," he answered, voice flat. "How was today?" "Fine." "Anything happen at school?" A pause, long enough to feel intentional. "Mom said you're busy." I held the phone tighter. "I'm never too busy to talk to you," I said. "Okay." That was it. No questions, no curiosity, no warmth. Like he was reciting lines he'd been coached to keep short. I tried again. "I'm going to be away for a while for work," I told him. "But I'll call you. Every day." "Whatever," he said, and I heard something in the background. Vanessa's voice. Not loud, but close enough to shape the moment. He hung up before I could say goodbye. I leaned back in the seat and stared at the ceiling of the garage. Concrete. Pipes. A security camera turning slightly in its mount. Everything overhead was built to hold weight. Everything inside me felt like it was shifting. A knock on my window made me flinch. It was Gerald, an older coworker from compliance, gray at his temples, always steady, the kind of man who never wasted words. He held a folder in one hand and a vending machine coffee in the other. "You look like you're trying not to fall apart," he said. I cracked the window halfway. "I'm fine," I replied, because that was what I always said. Gerald didn't smile. "Marcus," he said, using my name like he wanted it to land. "You're being pulled out of your own son's life in the cleanest way possible. Quiet, polite, no bruises, no shouting, just a story they get to tell while you keep swallowing your side." My throat tightened, but my face stayed calm. He leaned closer. "Your silence is what they're using to write the narrative." I didn't answer right away. My phone sat in my hand, screen dark, my son's contact still open like a wound that hadn't closed. Gerald straightened, tapped the roof of my car once, and walked away. I stayed there, staring at my son's photo on the lock screen, thumb hovering over the call button again, not sure if letting it be was still an option. My thumb hovered over my son's name until the screen dimmed. I didn't call again, not right then. That was the worst part, realizing that love wasn't enough if the other side controlled the line. 2 days later, I landed overseas with a company-issued phone, a badge that worked in a building I'd never stepped into before, and a rented apartment that still smelled like fresh paint. The place was clean, small, and practical. Bed, table, closet, a balcony I didn't plan to use. I set my suitcase down and lined my shoes up near the door without thinking. Old habit. Order was the only thing I could still manage. The first morning started before sunrise. I laced up, went out, and ran until my lungs burned. Not because I loved running, because it forced my mind to stop circling. Back at the apartment, I showered, ate something quick, and headed to the office. Work was easy in the way difficult work can be. Clear expectations, measurable outcomes, no guessing games. Meetings, policy reviews, risk assessments. I knew how to do that. People respected the job title. They listened when I spoke. They didn't look past me like I was a piece of furniture. Evenings were harder. I didn't explore. I didn't drink. I didn't try to enjoy the experience. I heated up food, took calls when I could, and went through my day like it was a checklist. When the apartment got too quiet, I turned on a podcast just to hear a human voice that wasn't asking something from me. Every night I called my son at the same time. The first call rang until voicemail. The second got answered, but it wasn't him. "Hello?" Vanessa said, cheerful in a way that made my teeth clench. "Put him on," I replied. "He's busy," she said. "Homework. It's 8 o'clock. And?" Her tone stayed light. "Marcus, you chose this. Don't act like you didn't." I breathed out slowly. "I'm calling my son." "I'll tell him you called," she said, then hung up. I stared at the wall for a second, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to dead air like it might change. On the third night, my son picked up. His voice sounded like he was holding the phone away from his face. "Hey," he said. "Hey man, how you doing?" "Good." "How was school?" "Good." Each answer came out the same way, short, flat, like he wanted the conversation over before it started. "You sound tired," I said. A pause. "Mom said you're working," he answered. Not what I asked, not even close. I kept my voice even. "I am working, but I'm here. I'm calling you. I want to hear your day." "Nothing happened," he said, then added, "Mom's waiting," and the line went dead. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, staring at his contact photo. One of him holding a basketball, smiling like the world couldn't touch him. I wondered when that smile got replaced with distance. The rumors started a week later. It came through a coworker back home, a guy I'd known from DC. He texted me a screenshot of a Facebook post. Vanessa's words were careful, not naming me directly, just a story about doing it all alone, about a man who walked away, about learning the hard way who really shows up. The comments underneath were worse. People I'd shaken hands with, people who'd eaten at my table, men I'd coached with at my son's rec league. "Some fathers ain't fathers. Praying for you, sis." He left? Wow. I read it 3 times, looking for the part where someone asked what happened. Nobody did. They didn't need details. They had a storyline. My chest didn't tighten in anger. It tightened in disbelief, like someone had taken my life, flipped it over, and written a new version on the back. I opened my call history. Screenshot. I opened our texts. Screenshot. I saved every voicemail attempt, every "can I talk to him" message, every "please let him call me back." Then I created a folder on my laptop and dated everything like I was building a case file. Because that's what it was becoming. Not a marriage problem, not a misunderstanding. A record of how a father gets erased, one polite sentence at a time. I typed a note to myself, nothing emotional, just facts, then set the phone on the table and scheduled my next call for the same time tomorrow. The next night my call went straight to voicemail again. I didn't leave a message, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I could already hear Vanessa replaying it for someone else. She had a way of turning my words into proof of something I never meant. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the screenshot my coworker sent. The post was still there. So were the comments. More had piled on since the last time I looked. One woman wrote, "Some men will always choose themselves." Another said, "You're so strong, mama." A guy I'd worked with on a volunteer committee added, "Bro, you really did that?" No one tagged me, but the message traveled like smoke. Everybody knew who it was about. And everyone felt comfortable having an opinion because Vanessa gave them the easiest version. I didn't type a response. I didn't message anyone. I watched. That was what I did best in my job. Let people talk until the pattern showed itself. And the pattern was clear. Vanessa wasn't just venting. She was building a story. She was placing herself in the center of it, wounded but brave, and placing me where I couldn't defend myself without looking guilty. By the weekend, the tone changed. A man I'd coached with sent me a checking in text that wasn't checking in at all. It was fishing. "You good? Heard you left." I replied, "I'm working overseas. I'm still my son's father." He answered with one word, "Okay." That okay carried more judgment than any full sentence. Then came the first email from my son's school. It wasn't addressed to both of us. It wasn't even copied to me. I found out because the office receptionist, a woman named Diane I'd spoken to plenty of times, replied to an old thread I'd started months ago about my son's allergy form. Her email was brief. "Mr. Reed, please contact the front office. There's been a change with your son's records." My stomach dropped. I called the school immediately. Diane answered on the second ring. "Diane, this is Marcus Reed," I said. "What change?" Her voice tightened. "Mr. Reed, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say." "Allowed?" I repeated. "By who?" A pause. "Peter shuffling. Mrs. Reed asked that all communication go through her," Diane said quietly. "She told us you're not involved right now." My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles ached. "That's not true," I said. "I'm his father. I have never been uninvolved." Diane sounded uncomfortable. "I understand, sir, but we have to follow what the parent listed as primary contact requested." "I'm on the paperwork," I said. "My name is on everything." "Yes, sir," she replied, voice low. "But she made it sound like you left, like you walked away." There it was again. Same word, same narrative, clean and simple. I kept my tone steady. "Can you email me whatever forms she submitted?" "I can ask the office manager," Diane said. "But I don't want to get in trouble." "You're not in trouble," I told her. "I'm just trying to be included in my son's life." Diane exhaled. "Okay," she said. "I'll see what I can do." The call ended, and I sat there with the phone in my hand, staring at nothing. A week ago, I was still a full parent. Now I was being treated like someone on the outside asking for updates. My phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from a cousin back home. "You really left Vanessa and the boy? People talking crazy." I didn't answer. I didn't have the energy to explain myself to someone who hadn't asked me what happened at the table, or why my son's voice had changed. Instead, I opened the folder I'd made and saved Diane's email. I created a new section labeled School. Then I drafted a short message to the office manager, formal, polite, and direct. "Hello, I'm Marcus Reed, father of..." Halfway through typing, another notification popped up. Vanessa had posted again, this time with a photo of my son at a park, smiling. Caption, "Being both mom and dad isn't easy, but I'll do it." My jaw tightened. I didn't feel the urge to argue. I felt the urge to stop her from rewriting my child's reality. I clicked save on my draft, opened my calendar, and scheduled a call with a family lawyer in Georgia for Monday morning. Then I pulled up the email. My calendar reminder went off at 7:55 p.m. Call Jamal. I stared at it for a second, then pressed the button without thinking. The call rang twice, then stopped. A second later, my phone lit up again, this time with his name on the screen. I answered so fast my voice came out rough. "Jamal?" All I heard at first was breathing. Fast, uneven, like he'd been running. Then a sob broke through. The kind that makes your stomach drop because it isn't a kid trying to get attention. It's a kid who can't hold it in anymore. "Dad," he said, and the words sounded desperate. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. Hey, talk to me," I said. "What happened?" His crying got louder. He tried to speak, but it came out chopped up, pieces of a story he couldn't put together. They keep," he choked. "They was pushing me. They said you left. They said you don't want me." My throat tightened. "Who's they?" I asked. "Kids," he said. And Tyler's mom was there. She was talking to Mom. She said you ran off." I closed my eyes. My free hand gripped my knee. "Listen to me," I said, keeping my voice low. "I did not leave you. You hear me? He sniffed hard. "But you not here," he whispered. That hit different. Not like an insult, like a fact he'd been living with. "I'm here," I said. "I'm on the phone with you right now. Tell me what happened at school." He tried again. They took my lunch," he said. "They said I'm fatherless. They called me a—" His voice broke. He couldn't finish. My jaw tightened so hard it hurt. "Did a teacher see it?" I asked. "Miss Carter saw," he said. "She told them stop, but they laughed. Then they followed me to the bathroom. I locked the door. I couldn't breathe. I stood up and started pacing without realizing it. 2 steps, turn, 2 steps back. My mind ran ahead, trying to solve a problem I couldn't even see clearly. "Where was your mom?" I asked, already knowing this wasn't going to sound good. A pause. Then he said it. "She came late. She told me I need to toughen up. She said I'm embarrassing her." I stopped pacing. I stared at the wall like it had written the answer on it. "Jamal," I said, slow. "Are you hurt?" "No," he whispered. Just scared." I swallowed. "I'm going to call the school," I said. "I'm going to talk to somebody tonight." "You can't," he said quickly, almost panicked. "Mom said you can't. She said the school don't have to talk to you 'cause you left." I closed my eyes again. My hand slid over my face, dragging down like I could wipe the helplessness off. "Put your mom on," I said. "She's outside my room," he whispered. "She said don't call you." I hid my phone. That sentence did something to me. A kid shouldn't have to hide to talk to his father. "Listen," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "I want you to breathe. You're safe right now. Lock your door if you need to. I'm going to handle the rest." He sobbed again, softer this time. "Don't hang up," he begged. "I'm not," I said. "I'm right here." We stayed like that for a minute, me listening to his breathing settle, him holding on like the phone was the last rope in his hand. Then I heard a knock on his door through the speaker. Vanessa's voice followed, sharp and sweet at the same time. "Jamal? Who you talking to?" His breathing sped up again. "I have to go," he whispered. "No," I said instinctively, but the line cut off. I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. Then the messages started coming in. A text from my cousin again. "Vanessa told everybody you dipped and left her with everything. People feel bad for her." I stood there in my apartment, alone, watching those words sit on the screen like they belonged to someone else's life. A knock sounded at my door a few minutes later. I opened it and found Emmanuel, my coworker from the Europe office, standing there with a paper bag and a tired look. "You okay?" he asked. I didn't lie. "My son just called me crying," I said, "and I can't even get the school to talk to me." Emmanuel stepped inside, set the bag on the counter, and looked at me the way men look at each other when they don't want to waste time with sympathy. "Then stop trying to win this with words," he said. "Win it with records, emails, dates, proof." He nodded toward my laptop on the table. "Paper doesn't forget. People do." I sat down, opened the computer, and pulled up the folder I'd been building. My hands stopped shaking once I started typing. The cursor blinked on a blank page while Emmanuel stood behind me, quiet, letting me work. I started simple. Date, time, who called, what was said, what I asked for, what I didn't receive. That night turned into a routine, not a healing routine, a practical one. By morning, I drafted 3 emails and reread them twice to remove anything emotional. No accusations, no sarcasm, no "as a father," just facts and requests. The first went to the school's main office. "Good morning. My name is Marcus Reed. I am Jamal Reed's father. I'm currently working overseas. Please confirm I am listed as a legal parent and provide any documentation regarding changes to contact preferences. I also request a copy of any incident report filed on or around." I sent it to Diane, the office manager, the counselor, and the principal. I included my phone number, my work email, and my son's student ID. Then I attached a scanned copy of his birth certificate and the custody paperwork we'd filed years ago when we updated our wills. I didn't know what Vanessa told them, but I knew what the law said. The second email went to Jamal's homeroom teacher, Ms. Carter, with the same tone. "Please advise who I should speak to regarding bullying reports and student safety concerns." The third went to Vanessa. "Jamal called me in distress. I am requesting full access to school communication and any updates regarding incidents. I will be contacting the administration directly." I didn't add another word. It felt strange how calm I became once everything turned into documentation. No dramatic speeches, no begging, no chasing, just a trail. Emmanuel poured coffee into one of my mugs like he lived there. "That's how you do it," he said. "Let them talk. You keep the receipts." By midday, the school responded. Not with an apology, not with urgency, with caution. "Mr. Reed, we are reviewing your request. Please note that our records indicate Mrs. Reed as the primary contact." Primary, not only. That mattered. I replied within 5 minutes. "Understood. Please confirm my legal status as father and provide the name and email of the staff member who updated the record at Mrs. Reed's request." Then I moved to the next step, a family lawyer in Georgia. I searched for one with a reputation for custody cases and high conflict communication, not someone who promised revenge, someone who understood procedure. I booked a consultation and sent an intake email with the basics: married, child, overseas work assignment, blocked communication, school contact changes, public posts portraying abandonment. The lawyer's assistant replied with an appointment time and a list of documents to gather. I didn't feel relief. I felt direction. That evening, I logged into my phone account and pulled call logs for the last month. Screenshots, dates, times, missed calls, voicemails, everything went into the folder. When Jamal called that night, it rang once and went to voicemail. My chest tightened, but I didn't spiral. I saved it. I typed another line in my running document. Attempted call, no answer. Then the strange stuff started. An unknown number called at 2:13 a.m. I answered, half awake. Silence. Another call came the next day during lunch. Silence again. A text arrived from a number I didn't recognize. "Stop playing games. You left. Stay gone." No name, no context. Just a threat wrapped in certainty. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot and saved it. Vanessa messaged me later that afternoon, acting casual. "Are you coming back soon?" I stared at that question for a long time. She hadn't asked about Jamal. Not once. She hadn't mentioned school. She hadn't said, "He's okay." She asked about me returning, like my presence was something she needed to manage. I typed one word. "Why?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. She waited a full minute before replying. "Just asking." I set the phone down and opened my laptop again. Another email had come in from the school, this time from the counselor, asking to schedule a call. I clicked accept on the meeting invite, added my time zone, and typed back, "Thank you, please include the principal." My hands didn't shake anymore. They moved like they belonged to someone who knew exactly what he was doing. The counselor's call came through during a meeting. My phone buzzed on the table, and I saw the Atlanta area code. I didn't excuse myself with a long explanation. I just stood up, nodded once to my team, and stepped into the hallway. "This is Marcus Reed," I said. The woman on the other end didn't introduce herself right away. "Mr. Reed, I'm calling from Jamal's school," she began, voice tight. "I don't have a lot of time." That sentence told me everything. She was choosing her words like someone was in the room with her. "What happened?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "There's been an escalation," she said. "Jamal has been involved in multiple incidents. We've documented concerns, but..." She stopped mid-sentence. "But what?" I pressed. A breath. "We've had difficulty coordinating support," she said carefully. "Your wife has requested that all contact go through her. She's declined certain meetings." I kept my voice flat. "Is my son safe right now?" "He's in the nurse's office," she answered. "He's not seriously injured, but he's overwhelmed. He had a panic episode." My stomach turned. "Let me speak to him," I said. Silence for a beat. "I can't," she replied. "Mrs. Reed is on her way. She told us not to allow calls." I stared at the hallway wall like it had done something to me. "You're telling me my son is in crisis and you're not allowed to let him speak to his father?" I said. The woman didn't argue. Her voice sounded apologetic, but also resigned. "I'm telling you what we were instructed," she said. "Please, contact the front office formally." That's all I can say. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still in my hand, listening to the dial tone. People walked past me with badges, coffee cups, polite smiles, normal lives. My body stayed still, but something in me cracked. Not loudly, just enough to let the truth in. Vanessa wasn't protecting Jamal. She was protecting control. When I walked back into the conference room, my team kept talking as if nothing happened. I sat down, took notes, asked one question to stay present, then ended the meeting 10 minutes early with a calm excuse. No one pushed back. That was the advantage of a role with authority. You could leave without begging. In my office, I closed the door and checked my phone. 3 new messages from Vanessa waited like traps. The first was a missed call. The second was a text. "You have some nerve." The third was a long paragraph, and by the third sentence I understood it wasn't written for me. It was written as evidence, something she could screenshot later. "You chose to abandon us. You don't get to pop back in when it's convenient. Jamal has been fine, but now he's acting out because you left. If you come back and try to ruin the life I built for him, I will do what I have to do. I'm not scared of you. You're not going to use your job and your status to intimidate me. I have people who will stand with me. Don't force me to protect my son from you." I read it twice, then a third time, slower. She had already decided what I was: a threat. A father who asked questions became a danger. A man who wanted involvement became interference. And the part that stung the most wasn't her accusation. It was the way she used Jamal like a shield. I didn't reply. Instead, I saved the message, uploaded it into my folder, and forwarded it to the lawyer's intake email with the subject line, "Recent communication from spouse." My hands started shaking once I hit send. Not a dramatic tremble, a fine vibration in my fingers, like my body finally caught up to what my mind had been ignoring. I walked out of my office and into the corridor, keeping my face neutral because people were around. A man nodded at me. I nodded back. The small talk in the distance sounded muffled, like it was happening behind a wall. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I let it ring, watched it stop, then saw a voicemail notification pop up. I didn't listen yet. I didn't need more noise. I leaned against the wall for a second, eyes open, breathing steady, and realized something cold and clear. If I stayed quiet, Vanessa would finish the job. She wouldn't just keep me far away. She'd erase me until Jamal believed it too. I pushed off the wall, walked back into my office, and opened my laptop to book the earliest flight home I could take. The flight confirmation sat in my inbox, but I didn't hit purchase yet. Not because I lacked the will, because I'd learned something painful over the last few weeks. Moving fast without a plan was how Vanessa stayed ahead. She counted on me reacting. She counted on me showing up angry, loud, emotional. That version of me would be easy to paint as unstable. So I waited one more day. I kept my schedule normal. I went to work. I answered emails. I sat through a call I barely heard. Then I checked my inbox every 10 minutes like I was watching for a verdict. At 3:17 p.m., the email came from the school. Subject line, request for student records and incident documentation. My fingers moved before my mind did. I opened it and scrolled past the legal language until I hit the attachments. Incident report, PDF. Communication log, PDF. Meeting notes, PDF. I downloaded everything and saved it twice, once in the folder on my laptop and once in a cloud drive. Then I opened the communication log first, because that was where the truth would live. It listed every attempt the school made to reach parents. Dates, times, method, outcome. I saw Vanessa's name over and over. Phone call answered, email acknowledged, meeting scheduled. Then I saw mine. Voicemail left, no response, parent unreachable. Requested father be included. Mother declined. Father requested conference call. Mother asked to postpone. Recommendation for counseling. Mother requested to revisit later. My jaw tightened. One line stood out more than the rest, typed in the kind of neutral language people use when they don't want to sound accusatory. Mrs. Reed expressed concern that Mr. Reed's involvement would confuse the child due to father's absence. Absence, like I'd vanished without reason, like I hadn't been blocked. I opened the incident report next. It described Jamal being targeted repeatedly. It listed names of other students, staff present, and actions taken. It also noted that Jamal had asked to call me, Student requested father. Request denied due to parent directive. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen. My hands didn't shake. My mind didn't race. Everything slowed down, and in that slowing I felt something click into place. Vanessa didn't just talk. She instructed. She didn't just vent online. She created a system where my involvement looked like an inconvenience. Every time I asked for access, she delayed it. Every time the school tried to loop me in, she shaped the response. And because I stayed quiet publicly, no one questioned her version. My phone buzzed while I was still reading. A text from Deshaun, a guy from church who always stayed in the middle of everybody's drama. I hadn't heard from him in months. "You got a minute? I gotta show you something." I replied, "Send it." A screenshot came through right away. It was an old Facebook post from Vanessa, dated the month before my transfer. She'd posted a photo of Jamal on my shoulders at a rec league game. Caption: "Marcus stays showing up for our boy. We're blessed." I stared at it for a long moment. The same woman now telling people I abandoned them had once bragged that I never missed a thing. Underneath the screenshot, Deshaun added, "I kept that. Didn't feel right what folks been saying." I saved it. Then I saved it again. I didn't feel victory. I felt clarity. I opened my folder and started laying it out like a timeline. Vanessa's old post, the dinner night, my transfer paperwork, my call logs, the school's communication record, the incident report, her long text calling me a threat. Pieces that looked messy when they were separated started forming a straight line. The missing piece wasn't proof that Vanessa lied. I already knew that. The missing piece was proof that she lied on purpose, and that she used institutions, school, community, even my own son, to make the lies stick. I clicked back to the flight confirmation and added my credit card information. Before I hit buy, I forwarded the school documents to my lawyer with a single note. "Please review. I'm returning to Atlanta. I want a plan." Then I pressed purchase, watched the receipt appear, and started making a list of who I needed to meet first, once my feet touched U.S. soil. I landed in Atlanta with one suitcase and a thin binder that carried more weight than anything I owned. The ride from the airport felt shorter than it should have, like my body had been holding its breath the entire time overseas. I didn't go home first. I didn't stop for food. I drove straight to my lawyer's office in Buckhead, parked, and walked in like I had an appointment with my own life. Attorney Melissa Grant was already waiting. Late 40s, sharp eyes, calm voice. The kind of person who didn't waste time pretending things were normal. She flipped through the documents without changing her expression. "You did the right thing by keeping everything," she said. "This isn't about feelings, it's about pattern." She slid the incident report toward me and tapped one line with her pen. "They denied your son access to you while he was in distress," she said. "That matters," I nodded. "What happens next?" I asked. Melissa leaned back. "Next, you stop negotiating with your wife in private," she said. "You deal with the school and the court, public systems, paper systems." I signed a retainer agreement and left with a checklist. No pep talk, no promise that everything would turn out fine. Just a plan. From her office, I drove to Jamal's school. The front office looked the same. The posters on the wall, the trophy case, Diane at the desk. When she saw me, her eyes widened like she'd just realized I was a real person, not a name in a file. "Mr. Reed," she said, standing up fast. "You're here." "I am," I replied. "I need to speak with Principal Hargrove. Today." She glanced toward the hall, nervous. "Mrs. Reed is—" "I know," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm still his father." Diane made the call, then handed me a visitor badge. I sat in the plastic chair outside the principal's office with the binder on my lap like it was a shield. My phone buzzed twice. Unknown number. I ignored it. When the door opened, Vanessa was already inside. She turned her head and froze. For a split second, the mask slipped. Then she recovered fast. Chin lifted, shoulders squared, eyes glossy like she'd been practicing this in her head. "Marcus?" she said, voice shaking. "Why are you here?" I didn't answer her. I walked past and shook the principal's hand. "Thank you for meeting with me," I said. Principal Hargrove, a tall man with a careful smile, gestured to the chairs. A counselor sat near the window. Ms. Carter was there too, hands folded tightly. Vanessa sat first, like she owned the room. "I've been doing everything alone," she started immediately, voice cracking. "He left us. Jamal's been struggling because his father abandoned him, And now he wants to storm in here and... She covered her face for a second, letting the tears do the work. Then she lifted her head and looked at me like I was a stranger. Our son needs a real father, she said. Not someone who disappears and comes back when it's convenient. I let her finish. When she stopped, I opened my binder and slid it across the desk, one tab at a time. These are my call logs, I said. Every attempt to contact my son, dated and time-stamped. I pulled out the communication record from the school. These are your own notes, I said, looking at the principal. The entries showing I requested involvement, and the entries showing that request was denied due to parent directive. Vanessa's breathing changed. She started to speak, but I kept going. I placed the screenshot from Deshawn on the table. This is her post from before I transferred, I said. The one where she said I always showed up. Vanessa shook her head quickly. That doesn't mean... I held up her text message. This is the message where she says I'm a threat, I said. It was sent after my son called me crying. The room went quiet, not dramatic, just heavy. The counselor looked down at the paperwork. Ms. Carter's jaw tightened. Principal Hargrove stared at the line about Jamal requesting his father. Vanessa's eyes darted across the table, looking for a way out, for someone to save her version of the story. He's manipulating you, she said, voice rising. He's good at that. Principal Hargrove lifted a hand. Mrs. Reed, he said calmly, we need to address the directives that were given to our staff. These notes are specific. Vanessa's face went pale. Not from guilt, from losing control. I didn't argue. I didn't call her names. I didn't even look at her. I'm requesting immediate access to all school communications, I said, and I'm requesting a safety plan for my son that includes both parents. Principal Hargrove nodded slowly. We can do that, he said. I stood up, slid the binder back toward myself, and turned to leave. Vanessa's chair scraped the floor behind me. Marcus, wait. I kept walking. Diane pointed down the hall. Jamal's in the counseling office, she whispered. I followed the direction without speeding up, without hesitation, and knocked once on the door that had my son's name written on a small paper sign. The counseling office door opened, and Jamal stood there like he didn't trust his own eyes. He'd grown in the weeks I'd been gone. Not taller exactly, just older in the face. His shoulders stayed tense, like he expected the world to hit him again. Dad? He said. I nodded once. Hey man, I answered. He didn't run into my arms like he used to when he was little. He stepped forward slowly, then hugged me like he was afraid I'd disappear the second he let go. His hands clutched the back of my jacket and held tight. I didn't talk over it. I didn't make promises I couldn't keep. I just stayed there until his breathing settled. The counselor cleared her throat gently. Jamal's been under a lot of stress, she said. We're going to put supports in place, but he needs consistency. He'll have it, I replied. Vanessa appeared in the hallway a few minutes later. Her eyes were red. Her phone was in her hand like it always was, but she wasn't scrolling. She looked lost. Marcus, she said, voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. We need to talk. Jamal's grip tightened. I kept my tone neutral. Not here, I said. She stepped closer anyway. You're doing this to punish me, she whispered, angry now that she realized tears weren't working. You're making me look bad. That was the most honest thing she'd said in months. Melissa Grant filed the emergency motion the next morning. She didn't use dramatic language. She used the school's own notes, the call logs, and Vanessa's text messages. The court responded faster than I expected, not because they cared about my pride, because the paper showed a child in distress and a parent being cut out. Within a week, we had a temporary parenting plan. 2 weeks after that, we had a hearing. Vanessa showed up dressed like a grieving widow, eyes swollen, voice trembling. She told the judge I left my family, that Jamal was spiraling, that my return was disruptive. She tried to turn my discipline into coldness, my silence into abandonment. Melissa didn't argue with her. She let Vanessa talk until the story became too big to hold. Then Melissa handed the judge the documents, school communications, incident reports, the line about Jamal requesting his father, the directive denying it, the old post praising my presence, the new posts implying I vanished, the message calling me a threat. Vanessa's lawyer tried to object. The judge didn't even look up. The truth didn't need passion. It just needed to be organized. When the ruling came down, it wasn't dramatic. It was plain. Both parents would have shared decision-making. I'd receive all school communication. Jamal would have set call times with me that couldn't be blocked. Any changes to his records required both signatures. Vanessa was ordered to remove the public posts and stop making statements about me that interfered with co-parenting. The judge didn't say, "Shame on you." Courts rarely do. But Vanessa's face said she heard it anyway. Outside the courthouse, she followed me down the steps. "So that's it?" she asked, voice sharp again. "You're just leaving me?" I looked at her for a moment, not with anger, not with hatred, just with the kind of calm you get when you finally stop bargaining for respect. "I'm leaving what you turned this into," I said. She opened her mouth, ready to fight, then stopped when Jamal came out behind me and stood close to my side. He didn't look at her the way he used to, not with loyalty, not with fear, with confusion, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. That shift hurt her more than any court order. Weeks passed. The neighborhood got quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. The same people who had commented on her posts stopped asking questions. A couple of them avoided eye contact at church. Deshaun nodded at me once, no words, just understanding. I didn't go back to the house. I rented a small place nearby. Nothing fancy, just clean and steady. Jamal came over after school on the days assigned, and we built a new rhythm without forcing anything. Homework at the kitchen table, dinner, basketball in the parking lot. A simple bedtime routine where he didn't have to hide his phone to say goodnight. Vanessa called sometimes, not to check on Jamal, to test the line again. "Can we talk about us?" she asked one night. "We already did," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lecture. I didn't explain my pain like it was a plea. The marriage ended on paper soon after. No dramatic reconciliation, no last hug. Just signatures, a schedule, and boundaries that stayed where I put them. On a Friday evening, Jamal sat on my couch, controller in his hands, asking me questions about my job overseas like it was normal again. I answered him while I sorted his school papers into a folder labeled Dad's Copy, then set my phone face down on the table so nothing could interrupt us.